Hi everyone, my name is Munawar Hashim, and today's webinar is called Using LaunchDarkly Feature Flags with Jira Software. Like I said, my name is Munawar Hashim. I am a developer advocate at LaunchDarkly. In a previous life, I was a teacher, so that means I'm super passionate about education and technology, and I'm going to hand it over quickly to Warren to introduce himself.
Hello and welcome from Atlassian. My name is Warren. I'm a technical evangelist here at Atlassian, and for this, I was a developer for over 10 years. I'll be talking to you today about Atlassian Open DevOps.
Great. So let's take a minute to talk about why we're all here. If you signed up for this webinar, chances are at some point, something has happened in your production environment, whether that be an error or worst case scenario, production has gone down. And the path to remediation isn't always as quick and seamless as it should be. So our goal today is to talk about an approach that can be taken that makes that a little bit easier. By combining feature management and issue tracking, you can provide your teams with greater visibility across all your projects. And with greater visibility, that leads to breaking down of silos, and teams have a quicker and clearer path to remediation if any errors ever occur. And so we're just going to learn how to utilize both LaunchDarkly and Jira Software together and the benefits that come with our integration. But first, some background. Anyone can do releases at scale. Deploying on every commit will get you releases at scale. If you don't test anything, you just do it and it happens super quick. But what you want to be doing is safe releases at scale. And for safe releases at scale, you need feature management and issue tracking. Even with all the test coverage in the world, there's still the chance that when code hits production, something might go wrong. So how do we minimize both those? How do you minimize the possibilities of any errors? And if an error does happen, mitigate those as quickly as possible and get our customers, our end users, back on the right track. Feature management gives you the runtime control over the application, and Jira's issue tracking provides your team with the insights on your feature flags and up-to-date changes with your feature. This is useful throughout the whole cycle of a feature being developed. But today, we're going to look at a particularly difficult or tricky part of development, and that is deployments and releases. For many teams, deployments are exactly the same thing as a release. So when your code is deployed to an environment, it's immediately available to all of your customers and the end users. And that comes with significant risks. But it doesn't have to be that way. At LaunchDarkly, we constantly talk about separating deployment and release. You can treat deployments and releases as separate events. And honestly, if you remember nothing else from this talk, please remember this. Deployments and releases are completely separate things. A release is kind of like a business decision. That's where we make the money. That's where all the marketing goes into. And everyone is suddenly aware of this big release that's about to happen. And everyone's super happy. Whereas deployment is testing, it's verification, it's getting your software out to the place where it needs to be, but without showing the people who are going to be using it. And once you separate those things in your mind, you start to have a lot of potential that you didn't really know you had before. There are ways that you can work that allow you to go fast without upsetting the users who are going to be using your software. With LaunchDarkly, that means turning on a feature flag. And there can be scopes to your release. So I can release this just to one person in my team, a whole group of people in my organization, or maybe 5% of an audience. That might be 5% of people who live in London who are over the age of 25 and have long hair. Or you can just release it to every single person once you know that the code works, there's no issues, and your business needs are being met. So here's an interesting statistic that came from a study that was done. 15% of bugs are not caught in software testing. So modern software development forces developers to choose between moving fast or endlessly testing tech just to ensure that they can reduce the risk. But deploying quickly is no small feat. Those big bang releases I mentioned earlier, they often result in frequent errors, after hours work, and burnout. It's estimated that for high performing organizations, that 15% is really costly, really expensive, and time consuming. So when I say the term moving fast, what comes to mind? For a lot of us in this room, and you're not alone if it went there, your mind might have responded with breaking things. Moving fast without guardrails results in outages that both destroy your customer's user experience, but also the long-term or medium-term reputation of your company. At some point, this can lead to your competitors getting an advantage on you if this isn't happening to them. So development teams need a safer, more efficient way to deploy new features and involve development practices to meet customer needs. So with LaunchDarkly, you do not need to choose between risk and speed. Developers can move faster than ever without the fear of breaking things. You can de-risk rollouts through controlled user access and near instant rollbacks. By testing in production, teams can reduce the likelihood of business impacting outages by exposing new features to targeted segments of internal users before your entire user base. And errors in production happen, mistakes happen. That's a really natural thing of life, let alone in software production. And LaunchDarkly is that extra safety net that allows teams to revert back to a safe place anytime without disrupting customers. And at the end of the day, we want to empower teams to go faster. By integrating feature flags into existing workflows, developers just become less stressed. And by speaking to developers, I mean, we know that the less stressed a developer is, the more effective they can be, the more fun they're having at their job, and the better software that gets released. Okay, so this is my favorite slide in the entire presentation. I know it's strange to have a favorite slide, but in all of my presentations, I always have one, and this is mine. This image is a loop of how we develop and test software. So in the first stage, there's a new feature, and that new feature is released behind a feature flag. Then we go through our set of stages. First, we release just to internal users. So that might be one of my friends who I can enable the feature for them live in production, or my whole team or the QA team. Then they give me the go-ahead and they say, Munawar, you are an amazing developer. You've done a great job. Send it out to some end users. So then I release it to 5% of users. Everything is good. I roll it out to 10% of users, then 20%, more and more and more until I hit 100% of all of our end users. And everything is working fine and nothing broke. Except there are two types of developers in this world. There are really good, really talented, amazing developers. And then there's Munawar developers. Nothing ever really goes according to plan for me, unfortunately. So what happens is, if things break, in LaunchDarkly, it's okay. We can just turn that feature off with the feature flag and revert back to a safe space, safe timing code. And then we can optimize and iterate until we think that feature is ready, done. We remove that feature flag, move on to the next feature, and that's where we start this diagram again. I told you it's a pretty cool slide. I like it a lot. So as I was just mentioning with standardizing release processes, here is one of our customers. So I loved working with Justin and his team at Animoto. No longer was their engineering team constrained by a slow deployment process. And there's a little part of this quote I want to highlight where it says, it enables us to roll out our features to users quickly without fear. This fear component is essential to building a safe culture in your team and in the organization at large, actually. We often talk about in large organizations or startups that we operate in a no blame culture. And I know plenty of people who are really excited to work with their teams. And they say, I've just joined a company that offers a no blame culture. And then the next day, I see people posting on LinkedIn saying, I need a new job because I took down production. And even though it's a no blame culture, I got blamed because it was my fault. Now, with LaunchDarkly, actually, even if someone did do an egregious error, you can just turn that off like that. And instead of any blame going on, in less than 200 milliseconds, we're presented with a learning moment, a teaching moment. And that extra safety reduces the stress in any of these kinds of work environments. Yeah, and I just think it's really good for culture as well. I'm just going to pass it on to Warren, who is going to talk about Jira.
Thanks, Manowar. All right, I'll take over for a minute, and we'll start with the idea that software development is a team sport. Now, what does that mean? It means that multidisciplinary teams of people build software, and they use a wide array of tools and technologies to do so. For example, a startup might have one team with a couple of developers and a single marketer working to get a new idea off the ground. Alternatively, a cloud provider might have many teams of specialized functions collaborating to deliver new features. These teams have different capabilities and need different tools to help them deliver results. We believe that there is no such thing as one size fits all with regards to tools and technologies, since every team is unique. Since there is no one size fits all tool chain for software development, Atlassian Open DevOps provides a solution that lets teams build custom tool chains that address their specific needs. Teams can start with Jira software and add necessary tools as their needs change. This lets teams always have the necessary and sufficient tools available for their work. For example, the aforementioned startup would start with Jira software and would likely want to add an SCM tool to store their source code, a CI/CD tool to run their builds and tests, and some kind of collaborative documentation tool for design work. The previously mentioned cloud provider would need similar tools as a startup, plus it would likely need an on-call management tool to manage customer-facing incidents, and metrics and monitoring tools to have insights into the performance of its software across all environments. So, how can teams add progressive delivery capabilities to their custom tool chain so they can deploy more frequently, and why would they want to? Let's work backwards and start with why. What happens when teams don't deploy frequently? They end up with feature branches that are around for a long time. Now, why is that a problem? If a change is one day of work, it might be 20 lines of code across a couple of files. This is fairly easy to merge. However, if a change is weeks of work, it might be hundreds of lines of code across dozens of files. And it's likely that other team members will have changed the same files, necessitating a potentially complex merge. Complex merges are error prone, and refactoring is often necessary. Teams will need to retest everything after a complex merge before they can deploy and release their changes. And as Manowar said before, this can add a lot of unplanned work to the development process, and it can slow teams down. This causes a great deal of frustration for developers and development managers. So now that we've covered why, let's look at how a team can add progressive delivery capabilities to its custom tool chain. Now, one of the nice things about Atlassian Open DevOps is that augmenting the capabilities of a tool chain as a team's needs change is very easy. So teams can, again, start with Jira software. They go to the Atlassian marketplace. They can install the LaunchDarkly integration. Once the LaunchDarkly integration is installed, teams can start using LaunchDarkly's progressive delivery capabilities to manage their feature releases. And teams can interact with LaunchDarkly directly from within Jira software, specifically from inside Jira issues and from within the release tab. What is the release tab? The release tab is a single pane of glass for teams to manage releases. It provides visibility into the state of all work related to a release, and it supports progressive delivery through tight integration with feature flag vendors like LaunchDarkly. At a glance, teams can see the percentage rollout of each feature flag related to a release. Teams can add new feature flags or link existing feature flags to Jira issues. Teams can jump directly to a particular feature flag in LaunchDarkly to make changes. And these changes are instantly visible to everyone within the release tab in Jira software. This tight integration with LaunchDarkly makes progressive delivery easier to manage and reduces mean time to resolution for incidents. Another important consideration when deploying to production is security. Deploying production or vulnerabilities to production can have dire consequences. For example, a vulnerability could be exploited and customer data could be exposed. Imagine customer financial or medical records being stolen. This would be very bad for your company. Teams need to know about the vulnerabilities in their code to have confidence that it is safe to release to production. The security tab in Jira software provides a single pane of glass for managing vulnerabilities in your linked repositories through tight integration with security vendors like Sneak. Teams have a single place to go to understand their vulnerabilities. They can create Jira issues from the security tab, and they can add them to any of the releases in the release tab. Basically, the security tab lets teams release to production with significantly lower risk. So with that said, I'm going to hand this back to Manowar, and he's going to carry on.
Hi, thank you, Warren. And so I'm just going to quickly talk about our customer, Vodafone. Vodafone is a telecommunications company based in the UK, and they have over 18 million mobile and fixed line customers that depend on them to deliver messages and phone calls to loved ones or businesses that need to communicate with each other in order to get the job done. Now, a few years ago, their engineering team was shipping big bang releases. And this was happening on a cadence of about once per quarter. Even when they tried releasing smaller bundled features, they still weren't hitting the cadence that they desired. They knew they needed to optimize and to deliver a better customer experience for all. This was essential if they were going to continue being a leader in the telecommunications space. They had to move faster and could not risk releasing broken code to their customers. So they enlisted the help of LaunchDarkly, and with LaunchDarkly, the challenges they faced several years ago seem to have been resolved. Teams can now release on demand whenever they want. They can schedule late night releases when they're sleeping. Their stakeholders have more autonomy, which saves developers a lot of time. They also push smaller, more frequent updates. This is, again, what I was saying about separating releases from deployments. And if any issues go on, they can roll back maybe a small feature as opposed to a whole system. And this gives developers more confidence around deploying code into production. Using LaunchDarkly has allowed Vodafone to standardize efficient releases across a growing number of engineering teams to further their goals of operational efficiency. And Vodafone hit higher than expected adoption through word of mouth after only 4 months. So they now have over 100 users across 15 teams that are currently using LaunchDarkly. Vodafone hit this just because everyone had a great experience feeling confident to roll out features more efficiently. Their development teams can now work in tandem with product owners and specialists driving campaigns to deliver the best experience for their customers. So, feature management encompasses the release process to empower all of your company's teams to easily roll out new functionality to desired users. Free up your engineers to deliver code at their own pace, whilst retaining full control when those features are turned on for your end users. And for me personally, what makes feature management platforms exciting is how they interconnect with all of our favorite tools. So LaunchDarkly can integrate with your developers' IDEs. It surfaces events in your observability platforms such as Datadog, Honeycomb, or Dynatrace, and you can interact with flags directly in your chat tools like Slack and MS Teams. We also offer SDKs in a number of different languages that we are compatible with almost any tech stack. I say this a lot when I'm presenting at booths at conferences that we support almost any tech stack and any language. But there's always like a person who comes to the booth and is like, oh, yeah. Well, do you support Haskell, Lua, Go? Yes, yes, and yes, we do. But every now and then, someone's just always trying to trick me with a language that just is no longer used. And that's kind of frustrating sometimes. But We will support mostly any stack. And it also allows you to build standardized release processes that meet the governance and contractual needs. And I'm going to hand it over to Warren to talk about Flow.
Thanks, Manowar. In just 5 years, Flow has grown from a brand new period and ovulation tracker to a comprehensive top-rated health app. Over 165 million people now use the app to proactively monitor their health, get in touch with their body signals, and get personal support from others in a secure space. The Flow team has facilitated each step of this evolution with Atlassian. By bringing together diverse departments into one integrated cloud-based Atlassian platform, Flow's teams can collaborate seamlessly, track performance, and optimize their workflows. Now they're seeing results within their organization and for their users. Internal teams have improved deployment velocity by over 900%, cycle time by 88%, and mean time to resolution by 99%. Adopting a complete integrated suite of Atlassian cloud products has helped employees better serve each other and their customers. And back to you, Manowar.
Thanks, Warren. So we're going to show a demo, and in this demo, we're going to cover a few things. First is how using feature flags, how we can use feature flags to roll out a feature and target specific groups of individuals or segments. Then there'll be an automatic progressive rollout using our workflows features. And we'll also see how the integration links both Jira software and LaunchDarkly. And we'll see how we manage releases in the release tab, using Bitbucket to manage code change, and managing the security vulnerabilities in the Jira software security tab. So I'm super excited for this demo, and I'm just going to load it up here. Hi. In this demo, we'll be looking at LaunchDarkly and Jira and how you can use the integration to get more out of the tools you love. So our team has been tasked with relaunching the company website, and feature management is key for those changes. And here we are at the start of our release of Toggle Outfitters. Here's the thing though, this demo actually started yesterday when I pushed the code into the environment. Currently, the release of our storefront is controlled by a LaunchDarkly feature flag. Remember earlier when we spoke about testing in production and separating deploy from release? Well, this is it. When I enable this feature flag, in less than 200 milliseconds, we'll see the store release. And our application is available to all of our users. So, since we released this to all of our users, our blast radius is 100%. But we don't have to release with this much risk. We can layer on additional risk controls around this. So if I click into the feature flag, I'm presented with a targeting page. Because we want to test in production against the most controlled scenario, we'll adjust our release feature to use a targeting rule for our dev testers segment. This segment, dev testers, is a collection of users that are part of our testing team. In this scenario, we've taken our blast radius from 100% of our user population immediately down to a small, controlled group of testers. And when I save those changes, you'll see that our changes have been reverted. And this is because I'm currently not logged into the application as a dev tester. When I log into the application, LaunchDarkly captures my context and evaluates it against the rules we currently have set up. Since my user is part of the targeting rule for this feature, the feature is now released to me. In just a few moments, we've demonstrated the ability to test code in production by releasing a feature I pushed out yesterday, and also drastically de-risk that release by leveraging not just a kill switch, i.e. turning the feature on or off, but context-based targeting to completely control the blast radius of my release. Again, the idea is to make the release a non-event, to where you can test in production without fear because you have total control over the release. And it's not just segments I can target by. I can target by device, environment, user, location, email address, or any number of contexts that you can define. So, let's jump into Jira, where I can create and connect feature flags to our Jira issues. When I click Connect Feature Flag, I can choose an existing feature flag to link to my team's Jira issue. I'll use the flag that we just enabled to ensure that the rest of my team is up to date with the release of the updated storefront. And in our flags settings page, you can view the linked Jira issue through our integration.
After our devs have thoroughly tested the new storefront, I can remove the targeting rule and release to all end users. When you connect a feature flag to a Jira issue, LaunchDarkly automatically creates a flag link. This allows people using the flag to understand valuable context about feature flags that are linked to Jira issues. Our team has been instructed to release the website in multiple languages to capitalize on demand. So we're going to connect this Jira issue to another type of feature flag. This time I'm linking to a multivariate flag. A multivariate flag allows you to define 2 or more custom variations. These variations can be strings, numbers, JSON objects, or JSON arrays. So using feature flags, we can change the features or product experience that certain users receive. In this example, the language of the website differs depending on the location of the customer. And if I click into the Links tab, I can jump straight to Jira or from the LaunchDarkly dashboard. And I'll hand it over to Warren, who will talk about all the amazing features that are available in Jira.
Hello, welcome to Jira Software. I'm going to do a quick introduction to how development teams can do planning and organize their work using Atlassian's Jira Software product. And then we're going to take a look at our release hub. And then finally, we'll do a quick introduction to the new security tab. So to start with, we're looking at the roadmap. This is a place where you can create epic Jira issues. And underneath an epic, you can link a bunch of sub issues. This is useful for kind of planning out large bodies of work. So maybe each epic would be a feature that you're going to deliver. And essentially this lets you plan out potentially weeks or months worth of work on the product's roadmap. Once you've got kind of your work planned out in the form of epics and other Jira issues, you can jump into your backlog, and from the backlog, you can start to create sprints. In this case, we've got 3 sprints laid out. And if you have additional issues here that aren't assigned to a sprint, you can drag and drop them into your sprints. So in this case, sprint 1 has a number of issues associated with it. Sprint 2 has a bunch of other different issues. You can start sprints and complete sprints from this screen as well. Once you've started a sprint, you can jump into the board view. And from the board view, you can kind of see the state of all the issues associated with this sprint. So in this case, we've got a number of issues that are in the to-do state, a number of issues that are in the in-progress state, and a number of issues that are in the done state. Each of these issues can be drilled into, and you can see the details about them. Now, one of the problems with this view is that there might be hundreds of Jira issues in a particular board if you've got a large dev team working on many features. So we introduced the Releases tab so that you can hyper-focus on delivering a specific set of features by looking at a specific subset of your Jira board. So if we drill into releases, we can see that we've got a single release created, which is for updating the LaunchDarkly storefront. This is currently unreleased. There's a bit of a description here. If we drill into this, we come to the release tab view, and this thing has some information in it, specifically a start and a proposed end date. You can have a description. In this related work tab, you can create and link documents in Confluence. You can create and link your monitoring dashboards, your analytic dashboards. The idea here is that the Release Hub is a place to focus on all of the work related to a specific feature release. So it's for multidisciplinary teams. You might have marketing stuff in here. You might have design documents in here. All kinds of stuff can be added to this as well. For each one of these, you can create or link issues in Jira. So if you wanted to create a specific issue for somebody to take a look at this feature design, it's a single click. If you want to have somebody build out a monitoring dashboard for this, you can create an issue that's associated with this. Now, if we scroll down, we can take a look at the Jira issues that have been assigned to this particular release. In this case, we have 6 Jira issues. A number of them are already done and they've been completely rolled out. We can see that the feature flag is set to 100%. If we hover over some of these, we can see that there was a pull request and that it's been deployed to our production environments. This particular Jira issue, LDWeb 3, is in progress. It hasn't been completed because it's not 100% deployed to production users yet. The feature flag is only set to 80% rollout. In this case, we have another one that's in progress where the feature flag is set to 20%. And finally, we have LDWeb 34, which is in the to-do state and has not been rolled out at all. So somebody created this, they threw a feature flag that we're going to use for this work, but no work has been done. So now what I'm going to do is take a look at how to do this work. So if we click on this Jira issue, click on this link and jump into it, now we can see the entire Jira issue. We're going to move this to in progress and we're going to assign it to me. And we know which repository we need to work on. So if we come back in here, we can find our repositories under the code tab. And in this case, we're going to look at the toggle store repository. So we're going to open this in a new tab and we can get to our Bitbucket repository. Now I've already got this repository cloned into my terminal. So we're going to make a quick change and just see how Bitbucket works in terms of pipelines and pull requests. Jumping over to the terminal, we're going to do a git branch minus VB. We can see we're on mainline. We're going to do a git pull, and we can see that we're up to date. So we're going to do a git checkout minus B, LD web 34. It's important to have the Jira issue name in your branches and in your commit messages so that the integration between your SCM tool and Jira software knows how to link this information up. So now that we've created our branch, we're going to take a look at our README file and just add a trivial change for demonstration purposes. So we've made a change. We're going to add that. We're going to do a commit. And again, we're going to put in the Jira issue ID into the commit message. And we're going to push to a branch. Now, there's a Bitbucket pipeline file in this repository that's set up to deploy to some environments. When we push to a non-mainline branch, we're going to run the development part of that Bitbucket pipeline file, and that's going to run a number of steps. So the first thing it's going to do is run some unit tests. Then it's going to deploy to a test region in AWS US West 1. After every deployment, it's going to run a set of system tests in that environment to make sure that our change hasn't broken anything. And then we're going to deploy to US East 2, which is our staging environment, and run system tests in US East 2. All right, we've seen that the pipeline is run successfully, and we've finished our deployment to staging. So we're going to move over to the pull request tab in Bitbucket, and we're going to cut a pull request to merge this change into mainline. So we're going to throw a quick description in here. This checkbox is added by an automation that lets us delete the branch after the pull request is successful. I'm not going to check that in this case. If you want to clean up your branches after they're merged, you would check this after enabling this automation. But in this case, we're not going to do that just for illustrative purposes. So we create a pull request and we get this view. Ordinarily, we would assign people to take a look at it and approve it and merge it if it was up to par. But in this case, it's just me. So I'm going to approve it. Now, one interesting thing to note is that because we've integrated our source control management and our CI/CD tool, we can see on the right-hand side the pipeline that did the development deployment. This works for any integrated CI/CD tool. All right. Now that we've merged, we're going to see that this pipeline is going to kick off. And we're going to get our production deployment. If we drill into this, we see that we're running a completely different pipeline because, again, we're pushing to a different branch. All right, the pipeline is finished deploying and we are done. That pull request is complete. We can close this tab out and we can jump over to our Jira issue. If we refresh this, we're going to see that the development panel is now populated with some information. And this was done automatically without the developer having to come in here and edit any of this. This is why we put the Jira issue ID in the branch name and in the commit message. So if we drill in here and we jump over to branches, we can see the branch. We can see that it's been merged. There was one pull request against it. We can see that there were two commits, one of which we made and one of which was merged. If you click on these commit IDs, you'll jump into the linked SCM tool. In this case, we can see that it's the toggle store repository in Bitbucket, and it'll take you to the place that's appropriate. If you go to pull requests, you can see that there's a single pull request associated with it that merged in our LD Web 34 branch to mainline. And we can see that it's been deployed. If we click on builds, we can see that there was a single build that happened. We can drill into this to get to the part of the CI/CD pipeline that did the build. Under deployments, we can see all of the deployments that have been made. So in this case, we deployed to a test environment, a staging environment, and 3 different production environments. You can drill into any of these links to get to the appropriate place in the CI/CD tool where this happened. And if we click on here, we can also see that we've got a feature flag associated with this that is set to currently disabled and not enabling this new code in our environments. If we clicked on this, it would drill us into LaunchDarkly, and we'd be able to attack and touch the flag directly. So now let's close this out, and we're going to go back to our releases tab. And we can see that this change is also mirrored here. We're now in progress. We've got our pull request, and we can see that we deployed over to production. And I'm going to hand this over to Manowar, who's going to walk us through LaunchDarkly.
Thanks, Warren. I'll link one final feature flag using our integration in order to automate a progressive rollout. LaunchDarkly empowers teams to work faster together by using workflows to release our store progressively. LaunchDarkly workflows allow you to create templated release processes that can combine all of the functionality we've talked about in this demo. These workflows can be saved and used on other releases or executed as one-offs. The workflow creation screen offers several examples, including building a progressive rollout workflow, a maintenance window, or creating a custom workflow. Rolling out a new payment system is difficult, and we want to ensure that we continue to reduce any risk during release. We've already tested this in production with our dev testers segment, but to be extra safe, we'll progressively roll this feature out to an extra 10% of our users every few days. If anything goes awry, we can roll this feature back instantly. Workflows is my favorite automation tool. The idea of creating pre-designed sets of tasks means that I can create a standardized flow for my team when we choose to progressively roll out features in the future. And finally, to walk us through the Jira Security tab, I'm going to hand it back to Warren.
Thank you. All right, the last thing we're going to take a look at today is a tab that is new to Jira software. This is still in early access, so it's not publicly available yet, but it will be soon. So if we move over here, we can go to the security tab and drill in. And this takes us to a view where we can see an aggregate of all of the known security vulnerabilities from all of the software code repositories that are linked to this project. In this case, we have two repositories associated with this LD webinar project. First is our toggle store, and the second is a submit image AWS Lambda. And if we look down below, we see a list of all of the vulnerabilities. We can filter by container. In this case, we see that there are no vulnerabilities associated with toggle store, but there are vulnerabilities associated with submit image. We can filter by vulnerability, severity. In this case, there are no critical vulnerabilities. There are no low vulnerabilities, but we do have a number of high vulnerabilities. We can filter by stuff like status to see if they're open, ignored, unknown, etc. And we can filter by the issue status, whether there are no issues associated with the security vulnerability or if there are some. In this case, if we take a look at this first vulnerability, there is a Jira issue already associated with it. We can open that in a new tab to take a look at it. And with a single click, we can open up a wizard that will allow us to create Jira issues. So from here, we can click Create Jira Issue, and we can see that it automatically populates the Jira issue with information about the vulnerability, including a link to the security vulnerability database that Snyk maintains. And if we click create, we get an issue that is set up in to do. We're going to go take a look at LD Web 31, which was created earlier. So if we click in here, we can see this is in progress. It's been assigned to me, and we find out that it's an out of bounds error. If we take a look at this link, we can find some information about the vulnerability and potentially how to fix it. In this case, it looks like we just have a out of date dependency. So we can probably diagnose and fix this very, very quickly. Or the security tab here lets people come to grasp with the vulnerabilities present in all of their code bases associated with a project, quickly make decisions about which ones they want to address and which ones they want to ignore. And they can create issues and send them directly to the development team that's going to fix them. So it gives you a single pane of glass for looking at all security problems that you may or may not have in your code base.
And here we are back in our Toggle Outfitter store. Imagine this is now just a few days later. Our team has fulfilled all of the tasks laid out in Jira, and our automated workflow has rolled out completely to 100%. So I can now see our new functionality. If I add merchandise to my cart and then go to checkout, the Stripe API migration is complete, and my customers are able to fulfill their orders quicker than before. Using Jira and LaunchDarkly together gives teams more visibility and greater control over feature releases, allowing teams to progressively deliver features to their customers in a safer, quicker, and more controlled manner. And that's the end of the demo, and I'll throw it back to myself and Warren. Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, Manoa. And thanks, Warren, as well for that that demo. So what we saw in the demo was just how we use feature flags to target users and roll out features safely. We saw the progressive rollout that was automated across like a few weeks. We saw managing releases in the Jira software tab, and Bitbucket to manage code changes, and managing security vulnerabilities in the Jira software security tab. So just a high level TLDR, using LaunchDarkly allows us to safely test in production, deactivate broken code, which gives a lot of developers that peace of mind and help development teams go faster together. And remember, we're always focusing on that separation of deployments and release. And with Jira, we got the foundation for DevOps right out of the box, and helps in the progressive delivery pipeline by ensuring that everyone is up to date and is able to ship their code. And now integration allows us to check out our feature flags from the Jira dashboard and create and connect feature flags from there. And that's essentially the end of the presentation. Like I said earlier, we'll open up for a quick Q&A session before we share some additional links right at the very end. So I can change the layout here and stop sharing.
There we go.
Okay, so there are a couple of questions in the Q&A. Warren, do you want to tackle the first one there?
Yep, absolutely. So the question we've got is, can teams use GitHub instead of Bitbucket? This is a common question for us. GitHub is very popular with developers, and the answer is yes. The integration with Bitbucket, the integration with GitHub, and the integration with GitLab all provide equivalent functionality. So if you do the same behaviors with your GitHub repositories, you're going to see the same data showing up in Jira software in the development panel. And you can use GitHub Actions for your CI/CD as well. You can also use other CI/CD vendors. So for instance, you could use GitHub with CircleCI, and CircleCI would provide your CI/CD while GitHub gave you your SCM. All of that stuff interops the same way as Bitbucket and Bitbucket pipelines with regards to our tools. And this again goes back to that Atlassian Open DevOps value proposition. You can build a custom tool chain that uses the tools that you want to use rather than being forced to use the tools that we pick.
Thank you, Warren. And thanks for the questions that are still coming in now. I will deal with the next one. Okay, so this one is from Brandon Haviland. How do you go about removing old or deprecated feature flags? What are best practices? Ideally, I'd like a method to remove feature flags as simple as it is to create and implement them. I love this question, and we get this a lot at booths. A lot of people are using feature flag systems, and when you have one feature flag, it's great. If you have an inbuilt solution and you have one feature flag, it's great. Your code is still clean, lovely, beautiful. But when you have 100 or 1,000 feature flags, suddenly your code gets quite messy, quite ugly, and a lot of developer time is spent like cleaning this kind of stuff up, and it drives a lot of developers nuts, essentially. So I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that. This is the same environment from the demo you just watched. And all of these are the feature flags that we have. And if I go into the feature flag page, we have a lot of these tabs at the top. If I go to code references, I should be able to see, if you give me a second. Okay. There seems to be a little bit of an issue. I don't think I've linked up the code references tab here, but essentially what you would see in code references is a link to everywhere in your repository where this feature flag key is mentioned. And so developers go from having to scour their code base, trying to find the feature flags that they need to get rid of, to instantly knowing exactly where they are and removing them in a matter of seconds or minutes.
There's a question I'd like to address. It says, is Atlassian Open DevOps for Jira Cloud only, or is it also for Jira Server? Atlassian Open DevOps is a Jira Cloud specific capability. It is not available for Jira Server. As a follow-on to that, one of the questions is, how do I get Atlassian Open DevOps and what is pricing like? So that's one of the really cool things about this solution. As soon as you have any of our Atlassian cloud products, you have access to Atlassian Open DevOps. It is not a separate product. It does not cost money. It's a function that's available to all of our cloud offerings. You can essentially pick up any of our products, say starting with Jira Software, and you can immediately start doing the Open DevOps thing by picking the integrations you want from our marketplace and installing them. So if you're already using a number of tools, like say X-Ray, LaunchDarkly, and Circle CI, you can grab Jira Software, you can install those integrations, and they work together automatically. So it's really good at supporting kind of existing tool chains or building out custom ones that you want to start with. And again, that's free, it's out of the box, it's just there and always available.
I'm just going to tackle this one here. When large teams are working together, how can we ensure that some team members don't accidentally turn on features or target the wrong users? Is there a permissions-based system for LaunchDarkly? Yes, there's kind of a two-part to this question. First of all, is we encourage best practices when we're working with. I'm going to share my screen again, actually. When we're working with large teams. So that's like clear naming of your flags and just ensuring that we have descriptions, accurate descriptions, so team members know what each flag does and why it exists where it does. The second thing we have is something called custom roles, and this is more of an actionable thing that you can do. I mentioned before that there are loads of different types of developers that you have. You would not give someone like me the same permissions as someone who is designing or architecting a whole product rollout, because I might go into things and break things. So if I'm part of your team, there are roles that you can have, which is like reader, writer, or admin by default. And the reader role is just me. I can access the environment and look at things. Writer is I can make changes to the feature flags, and that includes people who are being targeted. And then we have roles you can make for yourself. So you can just choose, if you go into our roles-based tab here, you can choose exactly what permission someone has. And it's a really powerful custom role configurator, because you can choose someone who can go in and change the audience, but not necessarily turn on or off a flag, or only for specific environments or projects. And finally, if anyone ever does make a change that looks a bit odd, this is always tracked in the audit log. So like that's another layer of security. Or if you've used our integrations, we're able to see what changes were made when, again, in your favorite tools. Good question. Thanks. If there's any other questions that are coming through that people might want to ask, can be about what you've just seen, maybe something adjacent, maybe something about us. I'm currently in London. It's about 7:30 at night. 7:50. Time does fly when you're having fun presenting to all you lovely people.
Yeah, just to follow, I'm based out of Vancouver, Canada. So it's 11:50 in the morning today. So we're collaborating across the globe.
And if there are no further questions, I'm going to just show up one last slide where you can take action, check out a demo, look at the Atlassian marketplace. If I go to media and share that final slide here. So here we have
the QR code that sends you to Atlassian Open DevOps, our free trial at LaunchDarkly, and if you have Jira and you have LaunchDarkly, I highly recommend downloading the LaunchDarkly integration for Jira. It will just allow you to get more out of tools that you already love and pay for. I'm going to leave that on the screen for another couple minutes. And I really just want to thank everyone here from the bottom of my heart for rocking up, showing, asking great questions, and just participating in the chat. I really hope you enjoyed what you saw. And I'm going to also pass it off to Warren just to say a couple of closing remarks and his thanks.
Thanks, Manowar. Yeah, it was great to be here. We did have a late coming question that popped up. Specifically, the question was, does Jira have integrations with Azure DevOps? And at this time, yes, we do have some integration with Azure DevOps. So that is possible to integrate those two tools. I haven't spent a lot of time personally using them, so I can't speak in great detail about the capabilities. But yes, it does exist, and I think it's being actively worked on. So yeah, it was great to be here. I'm glad I could present this to you folks, and I encourage everybody to give this stuff a try. Progressive delivery is very nice when you stop having month-long feature branches that require arduous and painful merges. Anybody that's ever tried to merge something a month old knows the pain of that. So we can get rid of that problem and reduce our developer headaches by using these technologies effectively.
I just saw another late question that came in, which is there a historical view of feature flags in order to see all the flags, say, older than a certain date? If you look at the flags in the dashboard, it will tell you like when the flags were created in your particular environment or project. And you can sort by, I'm just looking at now, created newest, oldest, name A to Z. And there's a history tab inside your inside the feature flag that tells you all of the information that you might want to know about that specific feature flag. And with that, again, just final thank you. Please download the integration, check out Atlassian Open DevOps, and start a free trial with LaunchDarkly if you're not one of our customers. It may just change your life, as will all these tools. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.